Today is history of Indian residential school, how that came about. Well, I've been doing some research, and so the Indian residential school started in 1831 down to the east towards the Iroquois nation down that way, and it lasted until 1998. So in between that, the government, of course, want to take our land and everything, and as First Nations people on Turtle Island were in the way. So to get all our resources and minerals and whatever they're after, or forest, looking for farmland and all these things the government wanted. When Columbus first discovered, well, not discovered, but came to Canada, now what's called Canada, United States. And he went back and told them that the king at that time that there was people on Turtle Island already. And he's seen a lot of good things on this island that we live on today. So the king, time to go back and see what kind of negotiation can they do for, just to share their land and everything, because there's lots of resources. But that never happened because, again, as being First Nations people, very compassionate to Inuit people, we start sharing our land. And more Europeans came and they took. They took everything. In order to get rid of the Indians, as the government calls us, they set up these Indian residential schools. The prime minister at that time said, take the Indian out of the child. So for us to be colonized and assimilated to their way of life, they put all these things into place. And when Columbus reported back, and all these other reported back to the king, that we're not humans because we're not Christianized. So this is what they used against us, because we're not Christianized. So we weren't human, we're savages. They call us savages. So in 1831, we start setting up these schools, Indian residential schools, and they put them near the reserves. But that wasn't working. The children are still going back to their parents. So they still have their culture, their language, and all the good things that First Nations and people have to survive in this world. So in 1920, again, the government says, and the churches says, you know what, we need to do something. The children are still going back to their parents on their homeland. We need to do something about that. So in 1920, they start building these other Indian schools far away from the reserves, far away as they can. So they start building these schools, and the churches ran these Indian schools. The priests, the nuns, Catholic, Anglican, you name it, they ran these schools, United Church. So all this religion got involved, and they control, because we were savages, we were not Christianized. So they start taking away the children from the parents and put them in thousands and thousands of miles away from their homeland. So this is where it all started. The little Indian children, sometimes they're from ages 4, 5, 6, that are taken from the home without any asking permission from their parents to take them to school. They just came and took them away. And the parents have no say, because, again, we were savages. We're not Christianized. We had no say in what the government decided, the churches decided. We had no say in it. So this is where even our people were threatened. If you don't send your child to school, we'll put you in jail. That kind of thing that went on for years and years. So the children really suffered. When they got into that intermediate school, their hair was cut off, their braids, their long hair were cut off, just take them and cut them off, strip of their traditional clothing, and they're given uniforms to wear within that intermediate school. Whatever time they spoke their language, they got spanked and whipped and beaten, abused in any shape and form because of speaking their language. So they're trying to knock that language out of that child. And a lot of our children are confused and frustrated with this system. And a lot of children died within that system. They never made it back home. And to this day, we don't know what happened to some of these children that did come home. What happened to them? So there's a big cover up with the churches. And of course, you're forced to go to church. If you resist, you get whipped. Again, I'm a survivor, but 4 years in school in Pine Creek, just north of here, a couple hours away, maybe 5 hours away. And that's where I went. And the experience I had within that system wasn't good for me. Some people have good experience, some don't. But there's no happy stories about this in school. Nobody has a happy story because we're all incarcerated within that system. It's like going to jail. So that happened through the years. Take that Indian out of that child. That's their motto. Sir John A. MacDonald, personally said that. Take the Indian out of the child. So again, we're, as First Nations, Inuit people, we're in the way. So this happened 1831 and so forth, and the Métis people came in, and they too suffered through that system, the Métis people. So every brown skin that was in Ontario land suffered through abuses, lateral violence, whipping, and punishment after punishment for being brown, for being a First Nations Métis Inuit person. And we're punished. So there's a lot of stories that our old people have. And some of them didn't tell their stories because it hurts so much. What we call that pain that we carry today within ourselves is called that trauma. So as a child, you just think about yourself as a child taken from your home, from your parents, and your parents have no say in it. They just take you away. Just think about it, how that child feels. Just think about how the parents felt, the grandparents, the kinship within that tribe, within that reserve. There's so much destruction amongst Métis, First Nation, Inuit people, so much destruction. Now, when you look at First Nations people, Métis, Inuit, they're so dysfunctional. There's no parenting skills, nothing. We kind of gave up sort of a way to live the white man's world. And sometimes it's hard to live in that white man's world because the whole system changed the laws that they have, but to protect them, not to protect us. The policies and procedures they put in place protects them, not us. When I say not us, I meant the First Nations, Métis, Inuit people. It doesn't protect us. So in reality, when you look at this system that put up in place in 1831, nothing has changed. Nothing. When the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, made an apology, for my personal feel on that was I got angry. I was hurt all over again. That wasn't an apology to me. It wasn't, because he read it on a piece of paper that somebody wrote. And when he read it out, there's no emotions, expressions. When he read out the apology, there's no sympathy coming from this so-called prime minister. And in the first place, he didn't want to do it, but he had to do it because the government and the churches are saying, if you don't do this, the First Nations people are going to start suing of all the pain that was inflicted upon the Christianity and the government. So he had to do it. He had no choice. But in reality, he didn't want to do it. So that apology that he made, he brought in people that went through that Inuit school, the survivors. I was watching TV and I looked at the screen and this little old lady they brought into that House of Commons or wherever they have these things. And I was thinking, holy smokes. When you go to the materialistic world, the European world, the Western society, when we use old people, the law says you're abusing elders. So what is the government doing, bringing this little old lady plus Fontaine, and they're abusing those people? That's what I see. And I got angry. And that's a very nasty things. I was by myself though, but it's just that anger came up. There's no sympathy within that speech that he made. So this is why, I'm still struggling with that today. Because things have changed, but not that much. We still see our children get incarcerated, what we call the education system. They're placed in classrooms, just like us in school. We're all in classrooms, incarcerated, can't go out. We have recess 15 minutes. It's it's like a jail system, the way the Europeans work. So all these things were done to First Nations people, Inuit, Métis people, when this Inuit school was put in place in 1831 and continued to 1998. There's a lot of destruction within that period. And, it's hard to talk about it because you yourself was in that system. And how do you deal with that? Your language is taken away. That's the first thing you're taught as a child coming into this world. Your language is taught to you by your parents and your grandparents and your kinship. So, I don't know. Sometimes the things the government says it's all backwards. It's all backwards. So from 1831 to 1991, this has been going on for 167 years. We've been in this system. 167 years. And today it's still adding up because nothing has changed for the First Nations people. Métis, Inuit. Nothing has changed. We're still fighting for our rights. Sometimes I get so tired of fighting, but I can't give up. Our ancestors way back then, when the Europeans arrived, they made treaties. They signed treaties. And every treaty that we see today been broken by the government. Every treaty. It's all broken. within that system, the Indian school system, they put that fear. They put that fear in you. You know, they talk about your ceremonies. Oh, that's the devil's work. You're working for the devil. What is the devil? Today I question that. So this is what is put upon us. It's embedded deep inside us with all these pagan. You're a pagan. You know, all these, you're worshiping the wrong God. All these things are put into our mind and our hearts and our bodies. And it's very hard to survive in this world when people just judge you because of your skin color. And today that's still going on. Our people are so scared today. I go back to our young people, our young men. They were the hunters, they were the protectors. They were taught by their uncles, their dads, and their grandfathers, being a hunter and a warrior. And that was stripped from our young men when they put on the reserves. And they were told to stay there. They can't go out hunting. And yet the people are starving. So we're taught to sit in this piece of land waiting for rations. You know, the government was so mean. They gave us ration that was spoiled. And we can't go hunting or nothing like that. Yes, we're starving. So all these things that the government of, you know, of Canada and the United States did to us, it still kind of hurts to talk about it. It really hurts. What can you say? To me, when is this all going to change? We're 2000. The year 2000, you know, just so little things are just slowly changing. The doors are opening just a crack, but it's not fully open for the First Nations, Métis, Inuit people. We're still treated unfairly. So who's protecting us? We lost our warriors. We lost all our warriors. Now we live in the materialistic world. There's so much violence, lateral violence, sexual abuse. You know, the list just goes on and on. When I was growing up, I was pretty lucky. Within that system, my language was taken away in our ceremonies. Spent 4 years. When I came home, back to Sioux Valley, Dakota Nation, what was called Oak River at that time. Came back home, and my parents still spoke the Dakota language. So in reality, I didn't lose my language. I regained it when I came home. That was a huge, huge part of who I am today, is being Dakota and to speak it. That really saved my life. But there's things that really didn't change. Is, you know, I go back to my parents. They're not here anymore. They're in the spirit world. But they too went through individual school. My dad went to Labette, Saskatchewan. My mom went here, Brandon Indian School. I don't know how many times they spent within that system. My parents never talked about it. Maybe it hurts too much. I don't know. But then there's a generation of that, generations. I don't want my kids to be affected within that system, especially my grandchildren. In that system, it really, your life is turned upside down, terrorized, traumatized. Today, that's who we are. We still carry that fear of the government, of the churches. So it's hard to live in this world today, for me anyway, because sometimes I don't understand. Within the Christian, people say they work for God. How can you work for God and abuse children mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually? That's the part I didn't understand as growing up as a child. You're told you were the devil. You worship the devil. How can you tell that to a little child that doesn't understand about this way of life? So again, these little children are traumatized at an early age. Now they become adults and their family is so dysfunctional. There's no parenting skills. They lost their language. Majority of our homeless people are First Nation, and they carry that trauma. Our people on the streets. So for myself, I did I did choose alcohol to kill that pain within myself. 16 years of age is the first taste of alcohol. I see my parents do it, why not? So I was alcoholic till I was about in my early 20s. That's when I woke up. But I wasn't a perfect person. Nobody is. We have all our past. We all have a past. And my past is not pretty. But this is what the system did to me personally. And today, it still hurts. I'm still in pain because of this system. And when that system came in Indian school, and they put this another system in place, what we call the 60 scoop, as part of Indian school, where their children are taken from the homes and adopted out to non-Indigenous people. They're adopted on states, overseas. Our children are adopted all over. And some of our Indian CFS agency sold our children. $300, $100, $500. They sold our children to non-Indigenous foster parents. So that's part of the Indigenous school, 60 scoop. And the 60 scoop survivors are having a hard time. To me, they should be getting more compensation. They lost their language, their culture, their tradition, because they live in another world or they adopted down states, they lost their culture totally. They're the ones that are truly traumatized compared to us. Like I said, I got my language back. I'm walking just Red Road. But the 60 scoop survivors are still having a hard time identifying themselves because of this system the government and the church have put in place. So today I can honestly say I walk in pain. Every second I take a step, I walk in pain. It hurts so much. And people don't understand. Especially the non-Indigenous people don't understand. You don't understand our stories. You don't understand what we went through within that system. Sometimes it hurts when somebody I know indigenous people say, get over it. I hate that. I don't like that. You know, my question is, how do you get over trauma that's inflicted upon you by your ancestors? Only way this world will get better is the government and churches stand up and speak the truth. What happened within that system? Be honest about it. But they're too ashamed. What their ancestors did to the First Nations, Métis, Inuit people. There's that shame. They don't own up to it. As long as they don't own up to it, we'll be still in the same situation, time after time. And our children are suffering. It doesn't matter what culture you come from. We're all suffering from this trauma. I told you the story about the barbed wire with the tree. It exists today with our people. The First Nations, Métis, Inuit people. They're still carrying that barbed wire within themselves. But today, it's not going to drag me down. I was taught not to give up. I was taught to keep fighting for who I am in this world. As a Dakota, I'm not a Canadian. I'm not. I'm a Dakota. I don't come from Canada. I don't come from the United States. I come from Turtle Island. That's my home. That's my home is Turtle Island. Wherever I go, wherever I walk, plant my feet, that's my home. Because that's where I grew up. And a lot of people don't understand that. So today, as I sit here, getting emotional, swallowing my tears, you know, it's hard to be a First Nation. It's hard to be that person. Yes, some of the Europeans went through that. You have the Irish, they were put in that system, that school system. You have the African people suffering. All people of race, color are suffering in this world because of the hierarchy system, power and control. That's got to stop. How do we change that? Well, first we got to work on ourselves. This is what's important to teach the younger generation. How about the Western world into our world, the natural world? They need to know that education from both so they can have that balance, so they can have that understanding who they are in this world. But a lot of times within the system that we live in today, the materialistic world, the materialistic world pull us that way because we're so scared of our ways of life. But that's slowly coming back. But we shouldn't have to be scared about our way of life. We talk about the ceremonies, the sun dance, the sweat lodge, the weepy ceremony, hookah ceremony, all these ceremonies that we have is not a religion. It's a way of life. That's how we live. When the non-indigenous people go to church, they talk about God. When we go to our ceremonies, we talk with God. There's a difference. Every morning when I wake up, I do a prayer. And today, when I woke up, it's going to be hard today, because I'm going to be talking about the Indian resident school system. It is hard, especially when people look at you and judge you for who you are in this world. just like they're judging you that you're nobody, that you don't have a voice. Your life doesn't matter in this world. So there's so much negative energy within the city. So that system really divided people, even our own kinship, fighting amongst each other. But then again, I always tell people, heal yourselves. You have that ability to heal yourselves. Please heal yourselves. Because in the future, our children are going to suffer. We need to get back to Mother Earth, that nature that we're so starving for. To put our bare feet in that fresh spring grass that's going to come up. We're starving for that. Because that's who we are. Indigenous people. We're still suffering. We're still fighting with the government. How long are we going to fight? How long? I was going to schools, high schools, and I always talk about education. Yes, education is good. Our tradition and the materialistic education is good. But first, learn who you are in this world. Your education is paid for. Utilize it. Take advantage of that. Become a lawyer. Become a judge. Because that's what we're missing. The government back in those days, what we call the Indian affairs, were put in place. And they select who is an Indian and who's not. So again, that's one of the obstacles that we encounter. When a First Nation man marries a European lady, he still has a status. But when you reverse that, a woman marries a non-Aboriginal person, she loses her rights. So there's always that fighting on who we are. But then again, things will change. But in order for it to change, we have to work together. We have to work together. Because I'm tired of this pain. I'm tired of fighting. When are we going to speak up? Our chiefs are corruptive. The leadership want this money. It's not for the people, it's for themselves. Back in those days, before the Europeans arrived, the chief of that tribe was the poorest within that tribe because he gave up everything. Now that's a true chief. But today, we don't see that. Today, our chief has a beautiful building, all these things while the people suffer. So those policies, procedures need to change in each reserve. People got to stand up and say, okay, you're not a true chief. You step down. We put you there. We can take you away from there. But today we're so scared. Once we hear the word, I'll sue you, we get scared. Why? Because we don't have that money. But for me, I think that's what we should do. Start suing the government, churches, education system, justice system. We got to start somewhere. We just can't sit back anymore. This is why we need to educate our teenagers what's real in this world. What we need to do to have a happy life on Turtle Island. Everybody to be happy, loved, appreciated in this world. This is what we're going to start teaching. But that's not going to happen as long as the schools keep their door closed, the education system, justice, the health system, keep their doors closed against us. So we need to open those doors. So this is where our leaders come in. Speak up for your res, for your tribe. Speak up for them. You put as a chief, as counselors, protect us. Fight for us. So hoping things will change when I go into the spirit, Lord. I hope things will change for the better future of my grandchildren. I don't want to see them suffer. Nobody has to suffer in this world. Nobody. So that is my story about the experience I conquered in the Idris school. So the ceremonies were banned in 1884. No Sundance, no Sweat Lodge. They're all banned. If you're caught doing it, you either get shot or put in jail. So again, that fear we carry from these government laws that they put in place so we can't move forward with our own lives as being a First Nation man or a woman or a child, teenager. We can't move forward. So we got to knock down these rules and laws that they put in place to European society and change it to accommodate us also, not just to accommodate the European society. Those laws need to change. When you look at that, all these resources, these justice system, the health, education system, we're pushed back. Just like in 1831, we're no less. We're not human beings. And for 167 years plus, adding on those years, we're still considered non-humans. We can't, back in those 1900, we couldn't vote. But slowly those things are changing. But why does it take so long? Why is the government dragging their butts and not listen to us? First Nation people, what does that mean? We were here first. As long as you don't accept that, we're going to be having a lot of trouble, especially with our younger generation, our future generation. They're going to struggle. So people, for 160, years of trauma inflicted on our children, today now they're adults and they can't get on with their lives. And like I said, it hurts too much. It hurts too much. Pain after pain, every second day of your life, that trauma surface. Something triggers it. Last night, I was crying because I had to talk about this. I was crying at home. See, that still exists in me. It's so painful. And people say, oh, get over it. Get over it. We can't. Not that kind of attitude that you have towards First Nations, Métis, Inuit people. Change your attitude. You don't know what we went through. So don't talk to me about getting over it. Change your way of thinking. And like I said before, what if you were taken away at that age, 4 or 5 years old? The people are negatively talking about you. Oh, you're stupid. You can't work. You're so lazy. You're not educated. So these kind of things that we go through to this day. You talk about racism. This is a racism city. You see it, you hear it, you feel it. And that's got to change. Today, this is why I'm doing these teachings on this webinar. Hopefully, waking up the European people. It's time to let go. It's time to stand up and say, hey, I'm sorry. My ancestors did this to you. I am truly sorry. And yet, it's so hard to see that. Because your ancestors have that shame, what they done to us. So it starts with you. What are you going to do about it? That's the questions you got to ask yourself. What am I going to do about this in school? How am I going to help that survivor? How am I going to help these people on the streets are addicted to alcohol, addicted to meth, cocaine, you name it, because they're walking in pain. And we don't see that pain. We just see a drunken Indian. That's all we see, the outside. But truly what's happening inside. So it's quick to judge. So quick to judge. I do what I can to help my people. I try physically, emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Try to help them out like I help myself. But, the more I talk about it, it lessens the pain gradually. Am I going to be fully healed before I pass on, before I die? I don't know. Maybe I'll take it a little bit on to my grave. I don't know. Because nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. We're still going through that thick fog of trauma. We're still walking through that fog. Don't know where we're going with our lives because of the materialistic world. So I hope and I pray these words that are coming out of my mouth that you hear it. Because I'm tired of hurting. And sometimes it hurts so much when your grandchildren or your children are ridiculed within that school system for having long hair. Oh, you look like a little girl. Oh, you're dressed funny. How come you're always hungry? Because we're pushed out in the back. The price to rent the place is so sky high. The food that we buy is so high. Everything so pricey. Yes, some First Nations, Métis, Inuit people can afford it. Some can't. So people pray for us. Pray in your way that this will stop. That we can live together on Turtle Island It's a big, happy family. Dakota people have a word, Mitaki Oasan. What that means to all my relations. We're all related in some way because we all come from Mother Earth. She provides everything that we need to survive in this world. A lot of people don't understand that. So we can change the government. Our true leaders, way back in those days, are the women. They're the ones who were on that tribe because the men are so busy protecting, hunting. It's the women that hold the camp together. They're the backbone of the families, backbone of that tribe. So, it's tough. It's tough to be an Indian. It's tough to be a Dakota. It's tough to be brown in this society. It's tough. Just imagine what our grandchildren go through because they're brown. How are they going to be treated within this system? So this is why I'm so happy and honored to be sitting here and talking about Indian school in the 60 scoop. What really impacted and traumatized us, that system. And slowly, people get to understand how those systems impact a human life, especially a child. Especially a child. He had no say. She had no say in it. So, I've been talking for a long time here. But you know what? We can work together. That's my vision. I pray every day that we work together. You know, the mayor's on board, the councilman, the elders, health system, education system, justice system. We all need to work together. And if we don't, there's always going to be problems. And the finger is going to point to us because you brown people are bad. You're drunks. You're good for nothing. We're not. We're not those people. It's just that we carry that trauma. We don't know how to deal with it. Because as a child, how do you understand that? How do you understand a priest molesting you? How do you understand a nun whipping you, cutting your hair, raising your voice at you for speaking your language, for being who you are as a First Nations Métis Indian person? How does a child understand that? So now we come to a point that we're all suffering. The health system just pushes us away. Oh, you can't smudge in here. People are allergic to it. No, you can't come and see your sick relatives. 2 at a time. The justice system, majority of our people are incarcerated. And within that system, they're punished, they're punished, they're punished. The punishing doesn't stop. Even when they come out of incarceration, they're still punished. When is that going to stop? So that cycle begins with the incarceration system. They come out of jail, they go back in jail. It's just a cycle. With the education system, the doors are slowly opening. And like I said before, we need more elders within that education system. Go to the schools, talk to these children what's real in this world, why they behave that way. There's always a reason. Our children shouldn't be negative. This is why within those systems there's so much bullying, education, justice, health system, so much bullying within the resources, the economics, so much bullying because we don't understand. We don't understand about people in general. What is your history? What is your past? When we go to the doctor, he just sees the sign, not the system. When we heal as a First Nation, Métis people, Inuit people, we heal holistically. We heal from the inside out. And the health system doesn't understand that. This is why we need our medicines, our natural medicines to heal. Just a simple smudge can take care of this epidemic that we're going through. But by people churning up their noses with our smudge, that's not going to work. That's all taboo. You can't do that here. You're not allowed to do that here. So that system is still in place in Indigenous school. We're still in that stage. When is it going to change? You have the apology from the Prime Minister. That doesn't mean nothing. It's still happening today. So people, if you have any questions